Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Jason. So glad you guys are here with us today. We're in our third week of I Wills that will change your life. And we've been walking through Colossians, and next week we are finishing the book of Colossians. And 4th of July, I think we need to bring those poppers. Oh, yeah. And so if somebody's not paying attention, you just peg them with it. Be great. We got to do that for sure. Okay, you got that, Kristen. All right. So we're finishing up our series, and we've been talking about how Jesus gives us a new identity, and then as Paul unpacks what Jesus does in our life, he gives us a new identity as followers and children of God. And as children of God, we then come underneath Jesus and obey all his commands. And today, we are going to look at the I will, and the I will today is I will build great relationships. So we're going to just talk about personal relationships. We're going to talk about relationships in marriage, relationships as families, and relationships at work. So we're covering a big gamut of relationships today. And as we jump in, I was just thinking about my own relationships, and last week was Father's Day, which it was awesome. Let's give it up for Father's Day. Bacon, the cars, thank you for the team pulling it off. Even the serve team of the kids, they made these little ties. Our kids made us ties. I don't know if you're a parent and you got a tie, and if you're a dad. And it said, this is my daughter Eden's, my dad is my hero, which she did not write. They just put on there. And then they wrote, the first question they asked little Eden, 4 years old, for work he. And then I'm like, I'm in ministry. I help people. I love people. I share Jesus with people. He works on his computer. Thanks, kids. I love our serve team. I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I want him asking any more questions. And then this one kind of pierced my heart. He loves to work. I'm like, no. So my 4-year-old, her view of me is I work on a computer and I love to work. And then it gets a little better as I kept going. I think the volunteers downstairs were like, we got to make Jason feel better. And so they started adding like, he says silly things. He loves me. But as I thought through my own relationships, I just kind of thought through, where am I at in my own relationships and in my marriage? With my kids, as a boss, as an employee. And I think we can all agree we all want great relationships. But great relationships are incredibly difficult. Great relationships are very difficult. But today I want us to see that they're worth it, but we have to do something to have great relationships. Today I want to show you that great relationships take some work and they take a lot of humility. Great relationships take humility. And what I've found is most people in here, if I surveyed you and we're like, you want a great relationship? You're like, yeah. But very few people, I think, actually want to work hard at these. So today, I want us to learn from Paul and go, how can we work and how can we be humble and how can we have great relationships? In our culture, though, it's really easy to talk negative about these things. Have you heard recently someone complaining about their wife, complaining about their husband, complaining about their kids? Oh my gosh, my kids did this. I can't believe, or complaining about their boss or complaining about their employees. And as I talk about this, I'm slowly and quickly convicted because that is me a lot. Maybe I don't say it externally, but I think it internally. This week, have you complained at all about any of those relationships in your head? Yes. Hey, thank you for the bold people that said yes and amen, because it's true. Like, yeah. And then for all of you that are here and like, you know what? All my relationships are perfect. You guys can leave. It's good. There's coffee in the back. You probably won't get much out of this. But for the rest of us that are going, okay, yeah, I want my relationships aren't perfect. I want them to be great, but they're not perfect. This message, I hope, speaks to you. One of the hardest things about giving messages is I will look at our message series. We have it all planned out, and I know what I'm talking on. And so I can know exactly what that week God is going to do in my life. Because every single time, he just messes with me and goes, Jason, you don't need to share what people need to do. You just need to look at your own life. And it's just like kind of a little bit exhausting. So I'm married, I have kids, and I'm a boss, and I'm an employee. So I cover all of these. And I look at myself and I go, I wish I was better at all these things. Even if 22-year-old Jason could see 36-year-old Jason, I would by now think that I would be a better husband than I am. I think I would be a better father than I am a lot of times. I think that I would be a better boss and an employee. And I go, God, you're just crushing me. But in that midst of all of that, I go, God, I want to bring you in on this. So I want to share some of my hardships and what God's taught me as it relates to these relationships. And no matter where you're at it, if you're married, if you have kids, if you own a business, if you're an employee, there's an overarching principle that goes for every relationship that we're going to see today in Colossians. And it's this: that great relationships are built on humility. Great relationships are always built on humility. And so as we unpack what humility is, I just had kind of this definition that I think of humility in relationships is. It's this: humility is a love that wants the best for another. Humility is a love for someone else that wants the best for them. The humble path is not always the easiest path, though. It doesn't mean saying the things that make people feel good, because sometimes humility is saying hard things. It's saying the right things. It's not the path of least resistance. It typically has a little bit of resistance when it comes to humbly love someone. I think of it this way. When I was 21, I had a boss who was also a good friend. And we were working alongside each other for a couple months, and he pulled me aside one day and he goes, Jason, you have a lot of great things to say, and people like you, but no one's listening to you. That was some really hard feedback. And when I got that, I started interrogation mode, because I'm young and prideful. I'm like, what do you mean by that? Give me an example of it. Show me. And he's like, right now. But as he gave me that feedback, and I had to be incredibly humble to receive that. Finally, I go, you know what, Dagan, you're right. I can see that in my own life. I can see that I'm not living out the life that I want. I'm not leading in the way that I should. And I humbly had to receive it. And you know what? It took Dagan, my boss, and my friend to be humble enough to go, Jason, and to tell me and point it out to me. Because if he wasn't humble, he could have just taken the easy path and just said, I'm not going to tell him that feedback. See, humility is thinking the best for someone and love for someone. And so great relationships are built on humility of both parties. So as we dive in of Colossians 3, I want to just give you kind of a paradigm shift that Paul is making. As followers of Jesus, if you follow Jesus, we do relationships different. We don't do relationships like the world does relationships. We're called to do something different. And we look to God for salvation, for his ways. We learn business practices from him. We also ought to learn how to do relationships with one another from him. And today, as we read through this passage, I want to urge you that it's going to take humility for you to take this in your own life and to apply it to your own world and go, God, what are you teaching me right now? So in relationships, this is kind of how most of us think. Any relationship, pick any one you have. You kind of have two parties, right? Let's just do husband-wife. So you got husband, and then you got over here, wife. And you have this relationship, and it's these two different parties, and we have this duality or this dualistic thinking when it comes to relationships, and we work together, and it's between, so I'm married to my wife, Molly, it's between Molly and I, and this is the relationship that we have. Today, I believe the paradigm shift that Paul is teaching us, and that I want you guys to see, is that actually all our relationships are not two parties. Because we do not serve and we do not believe in a two-person God. We believe in a three-person God called the Trinity, and he actually models a relationship for us that we need to put in every single relationship that we have, that he is over it. So in every single relationship, it is not you and another party. It is God over that relationship, in that relationship, part of that relationship. He is in control. We see this in the Trinity when we see the Son and we see the Holy Spirit. You know what I love about the Trinity? These are the three persons of God. God is not a being, he's persons. He's relational, and he works relationally with one another to make it. And you have God the Father, you have Jesus the Son, and you have the Holy Spirit. And in this relationship, they model an unbelievable amount of humility. In Genesis 1:26, at the creation of the world, it was not God the Father that made us. It says this, it says, let us make mankind in our image. God was saying, I'm not just one, the Father. It's us. It's this corporate relationship that is working. In the Great Commission, it says, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. See, God is a God that is a triune God. He believes in three parties. So when we go to relationships, we need to go, what is our relationships? They're not just us and another person. It's us and God. And when we have that paradigm shift, it will change everything. So as we jump into our scriptures, we're going to jump into Colossians 3, 18 and 19. And I'll just jump in. This is our first relationship. It's the humility that we need is humility in marriage. Okay, here it is. Wives, submit to your husbands as fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. And I know some of you, your hair on your arm stood up as I read it. Mine doesn't stand up because it's really long. But yours might stand up and you go, oh man, what is he going to talk about? So I just want to work in the marriage kind of the paradigm that we're going to go here. And please, 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 bear with me. I think some people have a wrong idea on submission. This has been abused, misused, and I want to take some misunderstanding and kind of unpack the whole thing. I can't give you the soup to nuts of every single role of marriage because we got 3 different relationships we're going through. But I'm going to give you an overarching theme of what Paul is communicating here. And I want us to work backwards because I think it helps us. And so as we think through this relationship of... That keeps falling to the ground, man. Husbands and wives, we have to think God is over it. And even as we read it, we can see this. So let's go to husbands, and then we'll go to wives, and we'll kind of work around this. In Ephesians 5, which is a parallel verse to Colossians 3 of roles in marriage and what it looks like, Paul unpacks very first when he talks about submission in 5:21, he says you should submit to one another out of reverence to God. So his very overarching theme is there's a submission, which is basically a humility that comes. And then he goes on to talk to husbands, and he goes, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave his life for them. So when we read this, it says, husbands, love your wives, do not be harsh with them. Paul's going, love your wives as Christ loved the church. In that day and age, when Paul says this to husbands, you know what? It's incredibly offensive. Because husbands are going, I'm in control. I'm the leader. I make all the decisions. I own the property. It's all about me. And what Paul is actually communicating here is you can't go sleep around with anyone you want. You can't be acting like you have been. There is a complete change, and the change is Jesus has come. He's died. He loved every single one of us, and you should do the exact same as a husband. As we look at Jesus, he was unbelievably humble. He was always looking for the best in people. He was helping those in need. He was standing up for what is right. He wasn't taking the easy road, but the right road. As he went to the cross, he replaced your sin and took it on himself. He was unbelievably humble. As I think of Jesus, he took the initiative to come to us. It says in Romans that while we were still sinners, Christ died for you. You didn't clean yourself up. You didn't get it all together. You didn't say, I need saving, Jesus. No, he goes, I'm going to take the first step. I'm going to take the initiative. I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to die so that you might have eternal life. Jesus laid down his life. Husbands, you're asked to lay down your life, to lay down your pride, your own agenda, to take the initiative in love, to go be like Jesus and go to the cross. And as I hear this as a husband, I look at my own life and I go, I don't match up. I get really discouraged when I just think, I got to be like Jesus? That is really hard. And I looked at my life and I go, how do I do this? And then the other day, this week, again, I'm just give you all my laundry of this week. It's only this week is the things I've been convicted of. So I'm in this week, and my wife, Molly, and I are in this huge argument. And we're doing this pop-top construction in the city of Denver, and we've taken like 2.5 months to get permits. And, I can't get angry at the person giving us the permit because they won't answer my phone call. They don't answer my email. They just want me to send it in a portal. So who do I get angry with things I can't control? I get angry at Molly. I'm like, there's no reason to get angry or frustrated or raise my voice. But as we have this discussion, really an argument, I look at that moment, I go, God, you're in this. It's not me and Molly. It's me and Molly and you. And at that moment, I just stopped and I remember praying. I go, God, I need your help. Because in my flesh, I cannot be who Jesus is calling me to be. And it's all of a sudden when I just went from it's just Molly and I and brought God into it, there was this peace. There was this joy that came through. And then also, God just doesn't give us the help in this relationship. He gives us the coaching. He tells us what to do. And he started saying, okay, Jason, next time, don't blame Molly. Don't raise your voice. Don't think like that. And I'm going, oh, God, you're spurring me on. You're encouraging me. And so as I think of my own life, I think that God is a part of this. And as I allow him in, it changes this relationship. So if you're a husband, I want to ask you, how do you need to humbly love your wife this week? How do you need to lay down your life, your own agenda, and be like Jesus? You need to ask him for help to become the person he has for you. He can help you. Okay, here we go. Wives, submit to your husbands as fitting in the Lord. Again, you can see Paul is bringing God into it immediately. He goes, is fitting to the Lord. The word submission here is a different word and a voice than the word obey that is in the next section that we're going to read on children. Obey. It's a different phrase. It's to submit, is to just place under, it's to trust, and it's a middle active voice in this submission, meaning that it's a voluntary submission. It resembles Christ's humility. It's not forced, it's active, and it's on the wife to take this attitude. It's not pushed on the husband saying, submit to me. No, it's a submission that comes out of trust and love. It's a respect the wife has towards her husband. It's a heart of being supportive and trusting that her husband is laying down his life as Christ laid down his life for the church. Sidebar here, this command, if you read it, it says, wives, submit to your husbands. It does not say, women, submit to men. It's a very clear distinction here that we want to talk just in Colossians 3. Again, I can't explain all the roles. I would encourage you, there's a book called The Meaning of Marriage by Kathy and Tim Keller that unpacks all this that I really love. If you want to go deeper in it, read that book. It is amazing. It impacted Molly and I's marriage a ton. But there's a choice we have a society where we get to choose our husbands, women, and it's great because that allows us to go, is he the leader? Is he the lover of Jesus that I want? Don't marry someone you don't respect. This is not being domineering. It's not making women inferior. It's not abusive. I asked a few women because I didn't want to have to just be the dude explaining every one of my thoughts. But I asked a few women, hey, when you hear this word submission, how does it make you feel? How do you just think about it? And so I have two quotes that I want to read for you. One, both from women I completely respect. One woman says this, submission, if you have abuse from your past or in your current relationship, this seems really harsh, feels authoritative, with consequences attached to it, like your earthly father. Maybe women who come from an abusive past with their father may feel this. God is not present when it is approached this way. There's no fear in love. Love that is Christ-like and honoring. A God-centered relationship with your marriage or with your husband is just that, without fear. Love that is Christ-like and honoring. I love that there's no fear in perfect love. That's such a great word. The next woman said this. She goes, I think that there's a general idea that submission means the same thing as slavery. I think this is partially because we forget that husbands have a command that immediately follows the command for the wife. If we actually read on how the husbands are called to treat their wives, we see the husbands are commanded to love their wives the same as Jesus loved the church. There is an idea that whoever submits is lesser than. But we can look at Jesus' example of him submitting to the Father to see that submission is not the same as being devalued, taken advantage, or put second. And I love how she brings in Jesus, because Jesus' example was this. He went to the cross for us. And he's in this Godhead, 3 in 1, God the Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit. And he goes, and in Luke 22:42, he says, Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me. Jesus didn't want to go to the cross. He's like, I can't do this, God. But then he goes, yet, not my will, but your will be done. And in that moment, Jesus models a perfect submission of trust, going, God, I trust you and I submit to your plans and I want to seek you. And Jesus isn't lower. He isn't this devalued figure. No, it says that at the end of time, when we're all before him, that every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. And Jesus' perfect humility of submission, it actually produces honor and it produces godliness. Again, I can't unpack every part of this in marriage. And I have a sidebar, just if you're a single woman here, you don't need to submit to your boyfriend. Just saying, he's not your husband. That you could put that, because he isn't laying his life down for you like Christ laid down his life for the church. So don't feel like you got to do this. This is the husband-wife role that we're talking about currently. Okay, so again, to unpack this, it's hard to explain it, but Molly and I, when we first met and we fell in love, we were at this party, and they started playing country music because we were with a bunch of Arkansas and Oklahoma people. I'm from Oklahoma. And everybody started two-stepping. And at that moment, I was like, man, I want to dance with her. But nothing happened. My prayers didn't get answered. She just didn't come to me. I was like, oh gosh, I got to take the step. And so I took a step to ask her to dance. Someone's got to take the natural step to go take the initiative to go out of their comfort zone and ask. And so at that moment, I asked Molly to dance, and I think dancing is very much what Paul's talking about in marriage. Molly, come dance with me. Let's give it up for Molly. She's gonna come dance with me. So I asked her to dance at two-stepping. You wanna make sure that you're like on the same rhythm, because if you go the opposite way, it messes you up. So it's like the guy's left, left, right, the girl's right, right, left. So it's left, left, right. And as I'm doing this, our goal is not that I just wanna dance with her, but it's for us to do it together, that we enjoy it together, that we love one another, that we enjoy it. And when we move, we can make turns together. And people are like, oh, wow, that's great. But the goal is not, Molly, go this way, come with me right now, we're going over here. Actually, if she goes, a good leader would go, hey, can we go talk to those people? She would tell me that. I'd be like, oh yeah, let's go over here. I'd take her over there. And we're going over there. Sorry, I got a little off. Sometimes you misstep. And it's for joy, it's to bring us together, and eventually it's under God, it's beautiful, and it's awesome. Thank you, Molly, I appreciate it. Our goal in dancing is to come together as one. It's not to be forced, it's not to be me dominating. It's actually for me to humble myself and her to humble herself. It's humility brought together. Humility will bring all relationships at work. Our second relationship we're going to talk about, and Paul talks through today, is children and their parents. And so parents and children, here we go. You like how I put the eraser up there? I know some of you saw that. Kids, parents, and Paul says this as we move on. He goes this, children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Again, as we see it, he's going, it's over the Lord's over this. It pleases God. And then he goes, fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged. This word here actually is obey. It's to listen. It's to adhere. This is referring to young children that are still in their parents' house. And as we study these next two sections, what Paul is not saying, because people will be like, well, what if your parents tell you to murder someone? Well, he's not saying that. It's not against God's will. It's not you obey things outside of God's parameters, but it's to obey your parents. And the humble position for a child to have a great relationship with their parents is to obey. It's humbling because they're looking for direction from their parents, not themselves. See, when you're a kid, you're going, I have to listen to someone, and I'm not listening to myself. I'm listening to this authority figure. I have 3 kids, and when my kids listen, they obey, and they honor. It's like we have this amazing harmony that happens in our house. But when they don't listen, when they don't obey, when they go against the rules of our house, all of a sudden it just splits our house in two. And have you ever wondered why God has set up this relationship in this way? Why is there this authority figure in a parent's life for a little bit over their kids? As a parent, I've learned that my kids' first authority, the first view of what an authority looks like is from me as a parent. That's a big responsibility. Their first impression of authority, discipline, right and wrong. I get the privilege to teach my kids how to obey an authority figure. Children are called to obey, but what as parents should we do? We're called to be like Jesus and to give rules, to give thinking that shape their view of God. As parents, we get to impress the opportunity of what God looks like because God is ultimately to be our authority. It's in the Great Commission. It says, teach them to obey everything I've commanded. Our first response that we get as a parent to a child relationship is we get actually to teach kids how to know God and to have a relationship with God. And I know we're not going to do everything right. I definitely don't do everything right. I can't control how they end up completely, but I do get to shape them. And that's a responsibility as me as a parent. It's a huge weight. I represent God, and I get to show them true discipline. And fathers, I don't know why Paul does this, but he pulls us out and he goes, fathers, do not rebuke your children unless they become discouraged. I'm like, oh no. Because I provoked my children at times to be discouraged because I have disciplined them out of frustration instead of love. See, God never disciplines us out of frustration. He always loves us. He never condemns us. Now, he does correct us. He rebukes us. He teaches us. He trains us. But as parents, we are to love our kids and to encourage them and not provoke them to be discouraged. And it was so good when I remember that, because I can get discouraged again. But when God is in this, he can help me and he can help my kids, and then he can coach both of us. And that when I bring that together, it changes everything. This weekend, I've been single dadding. So Molly just got in from Breckenridge this morning. And so for 2 days, 48 hours, I know all you single parents are like, oh yeah, tell me about it. I'm like, but I was like, okay, I'm going to be a great dad this week. And I was like, I was telling Ron, I'm like, I didn't actually prep my message as much as I normally do because I felt like God was telling me to focus on my kids because I had 48 hours where I could just focus on them. So I was just like, you know what, God, I'm going to bring you in on this. And it was so good. There were so many moments I'm like walking with my 4-year-old Eden, and I look down on her and I'm having a conversation with her. I'm go, this isn't just me and her. It's the three of us. And it brought some new significance that I hadn't felt in a long time. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than us, that God can be brought into it. And as the weekend went on, yesterday there was this huge rainstorm, that happened on a Friday night. So I told you I'm doing this pop top. We took off the roof on Wednesday. So, and I'm the GC, and so who's going to care about the house? So we put tarps all over it. The tarps didn't hold. There's about 15 gallons of water in the house on Saturday morning. So my great plans with my kids were to go, all right, time to work. I guess I'll teach you how to work. So for 5 straight hours, we clean up water. Judah knows how, he's a 7-year-old, knows how to shop back water, amazing now. And so we cleaned up, and I was just tired, and we went to Chick-fil-A. We also brought our dog because I didn't think it would be 5 hours, so we had to watch the dog also. It was just a mess. And we get Chick-fil-A, and finally they're eating, and I'm just kind of like finishing up some work, and they start eating in my car, and I go back to my car, and there's just red Polynesian and Chick-fil-A sauce all over my car. They watered the dog. They gave the dog water in the car on my leather seats, so that was great. And at that moment, I just lost it. I go, I can't do this. And I was like, why did you guys do this? What are you thinking? And I just got into that condemnation discipline that did not come out of a heart of God and love. And at that moment, I go, God, I need your help. And I go, guys, will you forgive me? You know what's really humbling as a parent? Asking kids to forgive you. And I've had to ask, I have a 10-year-old, so I've had to ask a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old. Every age group, I've had to ask for forgiveness because I fall short so many times. But isn't that what's beautiful in this relationship? is that we can ask for forgiveness because it's not just me and them, it's God, and God is over and God is in control of it, and it's beautiful. And honestly, after that blow up, we had the greatest time. My kids wanted to go to Olive Garden. We never go to chain restaurants. They're like, what's that place? So we went and ate unlimited breadsticks and salad, and they were happier than ever. Great memory. I think we'll remember it forever, but it took humility. It takes humility. If you want to have great relationships, it will take humility. And lastly, we're going to move to boss and employees. So as Paul talks about this more, we're going to talk about humility in our work. So we have our boss and we have employees. It goes on to say, bondservants, obey in everything those who are your earthly master, not by the way of eye service as people pleasers, but with the sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. A lot of versions actually say here slaves, which this is not about slavery. Paul is adamantly against enslaving people. He actually, just in verse 3:11, it says, all are one in Christ. We're one in Christ. He was talking about this pyramid. He goes, we're all in one, free or slave. And then in 1 Timothy 1:8-9, he actually puts enslaving people in with sexual immorality and murder. So we can totally clearly say that Paul is against all forms of slavery. What this is talking about, day and age, bondservant was just an employee, someone that was working for a boss. And so as we walk through this, it says, obey. Employees, obey in everything those who are your boss. So obedience. Obedience is actually doing it, not just having good intentions. I think a lot of times at work we could go, yeah, I'll do that. It's not just having good intentions, it's actually doing it. And look what Paul goes on to say. He goes, it's not to please people. You're actually not working for your boss. You're working for God, and it's out of a sincerity of heart, and it's a fear of him. It's a reverence for him, to know him. And it goes on to say in verse 23, it says, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. You know, when we work, we're called to work heartily, not for people to see us, but because God is in this relationship, that he sees us, that we're working for him. It's easy to cheat at work, but God's there. This isn't like Santa Claus, though. It's not like he's over there going, I know when you are sleeping, he knows when you're awake. No, it's not that, but God is in it. It's not that you're cheating your boss out of time. You're actually, God is developing you. God uses our work. He cares deeply about our work. He's using it to develop your character, your integrity, to grow you as even in these other relationships, as a friend, as a dad, as a mom, as a wife, as a husband. And when we work, God uses it to develop us. And then we receive this inheritance that God passes on to us. I love this thought that any work faithfully done well is difficult. Any work done faithfully well is difficult. So when we work hard at something, it's work. It's hard, but we're not serving just a boss. There's not just this relationship here. And when we see that it's to God, it actually makes us have great relationships with our boss. He goes on to say in verse 25, he says, for the wrongdoer will be paid back for the wrong he has done, and there is no partiality. Have you ever had a bad boss? Bad bosses, yeah, okay. So I have a friend that we were talking about this. He's like, I've had a bad boss. What is this saying? It's saying that, it's not you, Ron. He got really insecure right there, I could tell. Ron is a great boss. I love him so much. I do. Super grateful to work for him. But I'm not people pleasing. It's to God. For the wrongdoer will be paid back. When you have a bad boss, it's not that you are to get back at them. I had a great friend. He was like, man, I have a terrible boss right now. It's so hard to work for him. I don't want to work for this guy. And eventually, actually, some things happened that needed to be reported to HR. It's not going, well, you just let it slide. He reported it to HR, but the guy was still his boss. And so every single day he would pray and he'd go, I'm going to go work for this guy, even though he's bad. Even though I don't like working for him, even though I could do this better, I'm going to work for him because I'm not working for him. I'm working for God. And God says that you do not repay evil for evil. The vengeance is mine, says the Lord, that he will repay back. So if you're a bad boss, God repays that back. And he is the one over that. We do not return evil for evil, but as workers, we work hard and we work unto God. And then finally it says to bosses, it says, masters, treat your bondservants justly and fairly, knowing that you also have a master in heaven. As a boss, we are to treat people just and fair, another huge command. Because just and fair, those are the things of God, that he is completely just. He's completely fair. As a boss, we're to love people, not condemn people. We're to treat them well, but to treat them fair. Again, I've been a boss of a construction crew this last week, and I have other people I'm a boss of, but on Thursday, this week has been ridiculous. So on Thursday, I walk in, they've done demo on my house, and I walk in and I go, oh no. In the kitchen, they weren't supposed to tear out the ceiling with the rafters going out, and there's 200 square feet torn out. And I go, that's going to cost me probably an arm and a leg and a gold bar to get the wood to build that back up, because wood is like $1,000 an inch right now. But anyway, as I looked at it, I was so angry. And every four-letter word in my mind came off, and I was like, oh, I just want to rip this guy's head off. But then all of a sudden I remembered God's working on me. God's here. And so what would God do in this moment? What is God calling me to do? I need to correct them. I need to say this is not right, but I don't need to do it in condemnation. I need to do it in love and respect and be just and fair. As you think today about your own relationships, no matter where you're at, maybe it's the relationship with your spouse, maybe it's the relationship with your kids, maybe it's the relationship with your employees or your boss. Where do you need to humbly come to that relationship and go, God, what do you want me to do? Help me. Bring him in. And our I will statement today that I just want to leave you with is this, is that I will humble myself before God in all my relationships. Because you're actually not humbling yourself just between these people. You're humbling yourself before God and allow God to come through that. Right now, I just want us to pray. And I know that each person has a different circumstance. And I just want us to pray right now and ask God that we might humble ourselves, and we'll move into a time of worship. God, we come before you right now, and we just invite you in. We say you can have our relationships. We want great relationships. We want great working relationships, great family relationship, great spouse relationships. But God, we are desperate for you. And we are so grateful that Jesus came to live the perfect life that we could not live. God, we humbly say we can't do it. That's our first humble step. We can't do this. We need you. So God, I ask that you'd bring yourself into these relationships, and that each person today, as they walk into that relationship, they wouldn't see conflict, frustration, that it's just between them and another person, but that they would see that you're over it and you're controlling it. God, I pray right now, if anyone's heavy, that they have a broken relationship. God, I pray that you would come on them right now and give them the peace that they need. And God, maybe they have a broken marriage or a broken family or a broken work life. I know I have pain in a lot of those. God, I pray that you would just heal that. And that, God, that they wouldn't look back, but that they would take the next step forward that you're calling them to. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.